Sup shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reviews where today we have ourselves a track from an act named Christian Stutzig Records titled Priceless. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves the track on the screen on YouTube. We're going to listen through it from start till finish. We're going to hear what we think. Let's go. Pretty piano motif to start off with. And the strings are complementing it well.
She is a beautiful girl with the blue eyes. She's a great girl with the mostly colorful hair. She is intelligent and smart, and her value is priceless. She has great friends and people around her who love her. She is perfect even if she doesn't see it that way.
I like the vibrato. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Cat Stevens, if you've ever heard much of his music before.
What do you think her name is? Shall I tell you? What do you think her name is? What do you think her name is? Shall I tell you? What do you think her name is? She is of priceless value. She has a great appearance, and she has great hobbies. She is very creative and a great singer. She is the girl after whom everyone looks. She is intelligent and pretty, and her name is... What do you think her name is?
Are we going to bring the drums in at some point?
Shall I tell you? What do you think her name is?
Because it's nice to have the bass develop it and bring in some low end. And the calypso drums, like the xylophone or something like that, I think that's a xylophone on the sides, is really pretty and adds a bit of innocence to it.
What do you think her name is? Shall I tell you? What do you think her name is? She is honest and sincere. She is just wonderful, fantastic and great. She's perfect the way she is. She loves Disney and soundtracks. She is a fan of really great musicians who have influenced her. And her name is...
I assume that was a guitar solo. My mistake. I'll go back a little bit. We'll listen through that.
is...
I think that's a really cool little guitar solo we had there. It's an interesting tone to it. It'd be cool to hear what guitar he played that with, but, you know, I hear that and I think, right, we have an understanding that we can't just have the vocals being the focal point the entire time, because despite the fact that, you know, the vocals sound great, there's range between the head and chest voice for moving between different ideas and melodies. Having too much of one thing throughout a track can make it seem almost monotonous. So switching to something that can kind of replace that just for a little bit to freshen the palate can be quite effective. Doesn't need to be super
Do you
complicated.
think her name is? Shall I tell you? What do you think her name is? What do you think her name is? Shall I tell you? What do you think her name is? And even if she makes a mistake, she is still priceless.
I prefer Priceless to Perfect. Keys are pretty in our higher range. It glistens and glows. And welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from Christian Stutzig titled Priceless. What I think this track is about, I think it's about someone communicating to someone they are in love with or infatuated with or at least have feelings for, that they are special, intelligent, beautiful, popular, saying a lot of really nice things about them, just that they understand that that is the case. Yeah, that's what it's about. As far as I'm aware, there is more nuance to it, but that's the main message I got from it. The vocal style is that of someone who is trying to show a little bit of intimacy in their performance there. It's got that R&B-ish, almost croony, like that crooning, that kind of bit of romanticism about it. The vocal melodies and harmonies are almost popish. They blend well with the rest of the accompaniment. There are no harsh textures in there. It's meant to be a soothing, relaxing, intimate experience. The choices they made with the note shapes and scales, choices and stuff were great, and it was very well controlled. There were a few different ways we sung in regards to the note choices we had that you could easily distinguish and follow along with, and there were slight variations on the tails, but ultimately wanted to be more about the reiteration of the story rather than showing our ability as a singer. Nonetheless, vibrato passages, change the dynamic range and all that were great. Very happy with it. The song itself, I think that the vocalist sang in a way which was very appropriate to what was going on with the story itself. We have a situation with the song where it's 4.5 minutes, and that's quite long for a track. Usually you got the 2 to 4 minute sweet spot there, and this is outside of it, but I don't think that necessarily hurt it. It was a case where you had instruments introduced throughout. You know, we had the key components like the pianos and the guitar line that we had initially. Well, the guitar was the intro part, which was an ascending arpeggiated chord shape there. And we had movement between different lines from the start. The vocals complemented that well. As we went along, we had some xylophone elements there. We had the bass come in, and we also had the strings. So there were half a dozen different layers in addition to the vocals, and they all shared positive elements to them. The guitars were nice and sweet sounding with major triads there and didn't do anything too eccentric. The strings with the legato fills contrasted well rhythmically to the guitar parts there and added a sense of emotional weight to it through the harmonies they played. The bass line was nice and rounded in the low end, followed the root notes well and performed its duties adequately. And the xylophone accentuated mid to high ranges of those different harmonies and note melodies to surround the sides of the stereo field with sweetness. Anything else there that we had, like the piano, those chords highlighted the triads, instantiated the guitar in the first part. And the solo that we had on the guitar was decent. It was a simple reiteration or development of what was going on with some of the earlier vocal parts, but I was nonetheless happy with it. I think that it was a nice palate cleanser from the vocals we had throughout the majority of the song. So the instruments were played well. I mentioned when was the drum kit going in, predominantly because I'm just used to drum kits coming in at some point, but nevertheless, you don't necessarily need to have that. You don't need to have a drum kit in a song. You don't need to have percussion to make it worth listening to. It's just an observation I was making, is that it's a typical thing for a ballad format to have it around the halfway point. The fact that they bucked the trend there and did not have that was actually kind of interesting and engaging, and I enjoyed that. It's nice when the expectations you have are averted, because that makes it a more unpredictable and therefore arguably more valuable listening experience. Anyways, finally, the motif itself, with all those instruments coming together, sounded nice and warm and caring and loving. And it suited the story well, and the vocals sat well within it. So things were nicely connected. I think finally, the studio recording, mixing and mastering, the production there was splendid. We had an act there which were clearly capable of not only performing but also handling the production aspects of it. What I will say is that there was a noticeable jump in loudness once we got into the vocal parts. Later on, we had a situation where, the guitars came in, and then we had the keys, like the electric keys, coming with the vocals after those quieter guitars, and it was a jump. I'm not sure whether that was a decision there to try and sort of startle the listener and catch them off guard, or whether we simply thought that was well leveled. And it's not necessarily a criticism, it's just something I observed, if I'm honest with you, as per the point of this review in the first place, right? But what I will recommend is that if that is what we're comfortable with, that's dope. That's really, really cool. But it just seemed like a big jump at the start with the volume. But outside of that, the track was otherwise well leveled. I liked how the different guitar, string, key, piano, bass parts niched together in the frequency spectrum. As well as in the stereo field, there were very few resonant frequencies, and things were nice and wide, so they danced around the headphones. The vocals sat nicely in the middle of the mix. Once everything else came in, we had a bit more context instrumentally, and things seemed pretty smooth there. There was, of course, by virtue of one of my comments earlier, dynamic range to this. Things were not the same loudness the whole time. And then finally, of course, we had the limiting compression. It was nice and loud without pumping, so the bus compression limiting was handled adeptly. Ultimately, this is my review of this track from an act named Christian Stutzig from Christian Stutzig Records, titled Priceless, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go show us some love via the various social medias and the YouTube page. Stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as either help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world, and I will catch you in the next review. Spider Hands out.